There is an absolute boatload of support champions with inside Raid Shadow Legends, so it makes sense that players, especially newer players or free-to-play players, might struggle to figure out which ones are worth building. I'm here to talk to you today about a champion that I think is absolutely fantastic and definitely worth your resources. As you can tell, as always, by the thumbnail, that is going to be White Queen Ankora that we are talking about here today. This champion is a former fusion, so she is very much free-to-play friendly, and if you manage to get her partner champion, King Narses, I believe his name is. I'm completely blanked on his full title here. Let's go ahead and take a look inside the Knights Revenant. If you manage to get White King Narses, congratulations, you are now going to be Platinum Arena in no time. These two are basically the meta that we're seeing now for a lot of live arena, a lot of classic arena teams. They perfectly counter somebody like a Taurus Marichka that we were seeing quite frequently before. They also counter somebody like a Harima, and they're also countering a lot of other champions, even like a Galathier and a Lazarius to some extent. So these champions are absolutely fantastic. What do they do? Let's hop into the kit. A1 is quite a book to read. Attacks one enemy, 50% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random ally's skills by 2 turns except this champion. If King Narses is on the same team and has any active skills on cooldown, it is going to decrease the cooldown of one of their skills. I don't think it's going to be on a 50% chance, it's just straight up decreasing that cooldown. If he's on the same team and has no active skills on cooldown, decreases the cooldown of a random ally's skill by 2 turns, except this champion. If the cooldown is fully reset, also heals that ally by 10% of this champion's max HP. Basically, Ankora coming in on her A1, she's a very effective counter strategy to something like a Warlord or a Crixia or any sort of a champion that's doing increased skills. Even if you're going against a Lazarius and he kills somebody, she can then help those cooldowns to be reset after he's increased them. A2 removes all buffs, so a full cleanse, places a shield equal to 25% of her max HP. If Narses is on the same team, also places a 25% strengthen on all allies for 2 turns. Then fills the turn meter of all allies by 10%. Fantastic A2. You might be thinking to yourself, well, with these buffs getting placed, what if you're going against a Torment? What if you're going against, somebody who's placing a freeze or some sort of a debuff once you get a buff? Well, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. It revives a dead ally with 50% HP and 75% turn meter. Resets the cooldowns of the revived ally's skills. If the target is White King Narses, it revives him with 75% HP and 100% turn meter instead. After the revival, decreases the turn meters of all enemies by 10%. If Narses is revived, decreases the turn meters of all enemies by 20% instead. This effect cannot be resisted. This is an absolutely insane champion once you read through her kit. And her passive. Whenever an enemy tries to place a fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep, stun, or petrification on the ally with the highest crit damage, transfer those debuffs to this champion instead. Fills the turn meter of this champion by 50% if this champion misses their turn due to one of those debuffs. At the start of this champion's turn, remove any fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep, stun, or petrification if Narses is on the same team. This is insane. This champion, especially if you have Narses, even if you don't have Narses though, she's absolutely insane. I run her in some teams that we'll get into momentarily where she is just basically eating up those stuns, eating up those petrifications coming in from my damage dealer, and then that damage dealer is still free to go ahead and play however they would like. She's also filling her own turn meter by 50% if she misses a turn due to like a fear or something like that. When you compare that, or combine that, sorry, with her speed aura, which is also 19%, she is definitely worthy of being a legendary champion by all means. I was kind of questionable when the fusion first came out because I realized how much stronger her kit is with Narses, of course, and Narses was a guaranteed 180 void shards to get him. So I was kind of like, I'm not going to go for that. I'm not going to refinance my house to get this champion. So I didn't know how good she would be on her own, but she is absolutely fantastic. She is fantastic if for no other reason than just picking her in the live arena so the other team can't get that duo. It is absolutely incredible. For reference, I have Taurus and Marichka, and she is still one of my most used champions. We're going to go ahead and we're going to run it against a team here, so you don't want to run Taurus and Marichka against the Narcisse and Ankora for obvious reasons. Let's go ahead and refresh. There's very specific teams like this, for example, that you want to run it against. So what I have going on here, Taurus and Marichka, any sort of AoEs come in, Taurus is going to counterattack, of course, because Marichka gets hit. So, for example, Sun Wukong's A3, Xena's nuke, his A2, all those sorts of things. And you might be thinking, well, what's going to happen when Armand's places his stun? Doesn't matter. Ankora is going to eat that stun, and she's going to say, you know what, you got another, because I'm all done. She already fills her team meter at 50%. If it lands, I do also have her built in Stone Skin, though. So let's go over the build here real quick for her as well before I get too ahead of myself here. This is the gear we got on her. I'll throw my infographic up on screen here now. You're basically putting a lot of HP, you're putting a lot of defense, speed, and resistance. You could also go HP, defense, resistance, and speed, just depending on which order you want to prioritize it. We have HP, we have resistance, we have speed here, obviously. She's not really worried about building accuracy whatsoever, and I do have her in a one-turn Stone Skin as well, so I was lucky enough to have some decent pieces here that will allow her to have that one turn of protection. So sometimes if there's nasty stuff coming in off the start, like a Fear or something like that, we don't have to worry so much about it. She's got Speed Boots, HP Ascension, HP Chest, Resistance Ascension, HP Gauntlets, HP Ascension. These are the total stats that we are rocking here. So she has 108,000 HP, 2,800 defense, 279 speed. She is very fast for a support champion, and 248 resistance. If I were to critique my own build, what I would recommend is dropping down the speed a little bit and pumping a little bit more resistance. 248 resistance is not terrible. You're still going to resist a lot of the effects coming in from the enemy nukers, for example. However, it's not really going to do anything to resist any sort of viable support champions, at least, right? So generally support champions, especially once you get into gold 5, they're going to have, I would say, probably 500 or more accuracy in most cases, and that's probably on the lower end of things. So you definitely want to have a little bit more resistance, and for resistance, the quick guide that you need is you'll need about 150 more resistance than whatever accuracy threshold you're trying to beat to get like a 90 or above % resist rate. So just keep that in mind. We'll go against a team like this here. Lastly, I also didn't show you her masteries. Sorry to keep popping back across here, but these are the masteries we have on her. As always, with a lot of revivers, we have Timely Intervention, one of the best tier 6s in the game for any sort of a support champion. Increases this champion's turn meter by 20% whenever an ally hero drops below 25% HP. Now, you could run her in counterattack masteries. However, I have found that her cooldown reduction does not proc on counterattacks, which is a bit of a shame. I do have her in Selfless Defender, though, so each time somebody's hit in the round, it's going to absorb her damage, or sorry, she's going to absorb 20% of that damage, which is quite nice, especially considering she's built in that one-turn Stone Skin, and she also has a chance of increasing her own turn meter here, so she's definitely a very solid champion. This is going to be a fully auto fight. We're probably going to be done in a minute or less. Let's go ahead and see how it goes here. Basically, we're not trying to beat them in terms of speed or anything like that. They're going to come in. That always perturbs me when they don't have their Armand's AI set up properly. So the AoE comes in, of course, from the Xena there. She gets chopped down. Taurus comes in, gets chopped down. That is a little bit of a shame, though, that their Armand's isn't even set up properly because I couldn't show you. Let's hope this guy's set up to prioritize his A2. Armand's, for some reason, if you leave his AI as default, he's essentially going to prioritize the A1 for some reason. So like here, for example, then he's going to come in with his A2 next, I believe, which it works out well for us because he had a one-turn Stone Skin anyways. So, no, he's still just going with his A1 for some reason. I don't know how it works. I don't know. Armand's AI is so incredibly broken, so if you leave him in your defense, make sure you're setting a priority on his A2 because as you can see, he's just straight up not using his A2, which is pretty ridiculous. There's a couple of revivers on this team too, which is a bit annoying. And my Marichka did unfortunately get sheeped there by the Armands. She is back now, though. I was lucky enough, or unlucky enough, depending on how you want to look at it. I opened a 10 pull of Void Shards yesterday, and I actually pulled a duplicate Marichka, so I can build out another Marichka. The alternative is I could empower her +1, but I think having the Faction Guardian as well as a duplicate is just a better choice. Something like this might work very well here. It's going to be a little bit scary going against the Narcisse, of course, just because Marichka will place a Strengthen on us, and if we're under that Strengthen, he's going to smack us twice, but so far, at least, we are able to survive. We got some counterattacks coming in. That was his big money AoE skill as well, so if we get our skills off cooldown here, we can put up the shield and whatnot. There we go. Block damage is going to be quite nice. That'll help us survive a little bit. We take down the Riho as well. No revives coming in. Ooh, okay, that would have been a block revive if he had killed me there, which would have been pretty rough, so I'm happy that Taurus was tanky enough to survive. There we go. Narcissus is down as well, so now it's just down to the Warlord to see what he can do. As you've seen earlier on my infographic, the use case for Ankora is absolutely insane. You can use her anywhere from progressing in Doom Tower to dungeons to obviously Faction Wars. Faction Wars, she is an incredible carry. We'll go ahead and take a look at the Faction Wars real quick because there's not a ton of great support champions in the Knights Revenant, especially from an epic level. So for epics, you do have somebody like Rector Droth who can help out a lot. You have Sinesha, who actually has a god tier heal on her A3. There's been some legendaries, they've tried to give them this same heal essentially, but she just does it simply better, which is insane, and she does a lot of damage still. You have Sepulcher, she's not really healing or anything, but she can keep up that increased defense. And that's pretty much all you have, in all honesty, for free-to-play friendly support champions. So you don't really get too much from this faction. Obviously Doom Priest, if you manage to pull her, she's a very viable option as well. Miscreated Monster is a beast. But when you come into the legendaries, there's still not a lot for support champions with inside this faction, in all honesty. So Ankora can be a very, very solid addition to your team. A lot of Knights Revenant seems to be based around just doing massive damage and just sitting people down as quick as possible, which is good, but I mean, if those damage dealers die, it's over, right? So Ankora is really one of the only support champions with inside the faction, which therefore also makes her one of the best, of course. Just do the process of elimination. Let's go ahead and see what else we can get done here in the arena. We'll go against a team like this. This will be another great showcase. This showcase right now, I'm not going to lie, it's turning into more of a Taurus Marichka showcase. But you can still get the general idea of this champion, especially if we see her A1s proc a few times. There we go. So the stun stays off my Taurus, which means that he's able to go ahead and slam into the Armands, which is quite nice. We have a freeze coming in there from the UDK, which is quite cool as well. Everybody's getting taken down. And Ankora is going to be able to decrease the cooldowns on the Taurus as well, as you've seen there. So she is a very fantastic champion. This is going to be rough, though, because we're going to get stunned and turn meters stolen, which is a bit of a shame. Our Taurus, of course, doesn't get stunned just because Ankora ate it instead. So what's very cool is even if she already has a debuff, so like in that case the stun, for example, it still rips it off the Taurus as well and puts it on her instead, which is fantastic. They actually set her kit up very, very well there. Let's see what else we can do. A team like this might be pretty nasty. Having a Sifi with a Ragash is interesting. I'm assuming this guy doesn't have Harima, because that would be the usual pairing that you run with if you have a Sifi. When I pulled the legendary and it turned out to be the other Marichka, I was actually really hoping that it would turn out to be a Sifi, because I still don't have her, so I still don't have like a meta setup champion for when I'm running Harima in live arena, which is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is, I suppose. There we go, we got the counterattack coming in, which is quite nice. Apparently the counterattack still counted, even though Marichka is a sheep right now, which is interesting. Not sure why that was the case, but it is what it is, I suppose. There we go, so now we just need to take down the Armands. He's going to be sitting down right here because of the counterattack. And you might think to yourself, well, hey, you know, you have Taurus and Marichka. At the end of the day, Ankora is going to be so good for keeping those buffs off of whatever nuker that you might have. And if you don't have them, I'll put you onto a little bit of game here. We actually had a fusion not too long ago by the name of Rorik Wormbane, who hasn't really gotten a whole lot of use inside the meta, but he has an absolute slap of an A2, I think it is. Sorry, A3. So attacks one enemy, ignores 50% of the target's defense, will always use the skill instead of the default skill when counterattacking. So what you can do is you can essentially run this guy in something like Stone Skin against an Armands. The reason for that is he has a immune to stun debuff, so you don't need to worry about that stun. Then all you need to do is you need to run him in a revenge accessory or retaliation gear, essentially. So he's going to get that chance to counterattack. Just bring in some protection with him, right? So you can bring him with like an Ankora or something like that. Somebody who's placing shields, UDK would be perfect. Somebody who's just going to be able to keep him alive. And anytime he gets hit, he's going to just straight up be immune to that stun coming from the Armands. I should be doing a video about this guy in the near future. I just haven't had a chance to get him built yet. He's kind of like that one guy from, what is that show? Game of Thrones. I haven't seen Game of Thrones, but I know the character. I don't know his name or anything like that, so you'll have to forgive me. But totally not IP infringement there on the side of Raid, I'm sure. Let's go ahead Let's run against one more team here and see what we can make happen. This could be a very interesting team to go against, although they do have Queen Prixia and Narcissus there, so that's going to be a bit tough, I would say. This would be an interesting team as well, in all honesty. I think we can probably beat them. It just depends on if we get the RNG on Siegfried and when we actually slam into him there. And we get polymorphed off the hop. That's awesome. Love to see it. Absolutely love it. We get polymorph, stone skin strip. It's not much worse than this. That goddamn Siegfried is absolutely insane, by the way. He almost took out my entire UDK's shield in one hit from his A3, which is just insanity if you think about it. That is crazy. We need the Taurus to get out of the sheep here. That would be quite nice. There it is. He's out now, which is perfect. We got that coming in, though, but our Mons should be pretty close to death now. We need Ankora to come back around to her skills, but that's going to be it. That's all she wrote. This team is absolutely insane. Makes sense that I wasn't really able to beat them. They have a +2 Armands, a +1 Siegfried. This guy spends a little bit of money. He keeps the servers on at Plarium. Let's see if there's one more team we can try and run it against here. Something like this could be interesting as long as we don't get block revived. I think Mezamel is the champion that can do the block revive. She's probably one of the mythicals that I'd be excited to pull, just because she looks absolutely badass, and I really want to get the champion. There we go, counterattack coming in from the Armands, which is quite nice. We got the cleanse coming in from the Ankora as well. Mezamel's now coming in with her absolute shred of an AoE, which is always terrifying to go against. We got the freeze coming in there on the Arbiter, which is quite nice. We get the revive coming in on the Marichka, which is just as nice. Last person alive is the Arbiter. She's not going to be able to do a whole lot, except revive, so she can do a lot, actually. I regret saying that. However, we're going to get the counterattack. The Armands goes down once again. Mezamel's doing her AoE, but she's not going to sit down. I guess it doesn't trigger counterattacks. That was a pretty badass sound effect. I've never actually heard the sound effect before because I mainly play on my phone and I don't have audio on my phone. That being said, I hope this video helps you to figure out how you want to build Ankora a little bit more and where you want to use her, the stats you're going for, all those sorts of good things. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys use her, where you use her, and what you enjoy most about her kit, because she is definitely a bit of a unique champion that we don't see all that much in the game. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.